Good afternoon, sir. License and registration, please. Do you know why I pulled you over today? No, officer. You were following too closely back there. Just need to verify your information. On a clear afternoon, Officer Daniel Carter of the State Highway Patrol conducted what appeared to be a routine traffic stop on a major interstate corridor. No pursuit, no drawn weapons, no urgency, just a minor traffic violation, following too closely. Within 20 minutes, the stop would produce a discovery that most officers encounter only a few times in their careers. 50 pounds of narcotics, packaged, distributed weight, high street value, the kind of seizure that leads to commendations, task force briefings, and federal prosecution. But the jury never saw this footage. The evidence was suppressed, the charges were dropped, and the driver walked out of the courthouse a free man. Not because the drugs weren't real, not because the arrest didn't happen, but because of a single decision made quietly at the 8-minute mark of this stop. A decision so subtle it happens in real time without anyone raising their voice. A decision many viewers miss the first time they watch. Today, we reconstruct that stop step by step, not to debate the outcome, but to understand the moment the case was lost. The stop begins at 1400 hours. Traffic is moderate. Weather conditions are clear. Dashcam confirms the initiating violation, following distance below safe threshold at highway speed. In traffic enforcement, even minor violations establish lawful grounds for a stop. This is not discretionary. This is standard practice. Watch carefully. Nothing in this interaction suggests escalation. The officer's tone is neutral. Commands are limited. No search request. No accusation. This matters because everything that follows depends on the legality of this initial contact. The officer observes several indicators commonly noted in roadside interviews: visible nervousness, delayed responses, conflicting travel explanation, repeated glances toward rear compartment. None of these behaviors are illegal, but collectively, they create investigative curiosity. In law enforcement terminology, this is often described as emerging suspicion. However, suspicion alone does not authorize a search. Not yet. At this stage, the purpose of the stop is strictly administrative. Verify identity. Check license status. Confirm warrants. Issue citation or warning. This phase defines the legal boundary of the stop's duration. The database check returns clear. No warrants. Valid license. Vehicle registration current. The officer prepares a written warning. This moment, routine, procedural, unremarkable, is where the timeline becomes legally significant. Courts evaluate traffic stops based not only on what officers do, but how long they do it. A lawful stop may continue only as long as necessary to handle the reason for the stop. Once that purpose is completed, the legal justification for detention ends. Here's your license back. I'm just issuing a warning today. You're free to go. This exchange marks a legal transition. The formal traffic stop has ended. Authority based on the traffic violation is complete. Any continued interaction must now be voluntary or supported by new, articulable suspicion. Before you leave, do you mind if I ask a few more questions? I'd rather go, sir. The driver declines. This is a lawful refusal. At this point, two legal paths remain. The driver departs. The officer develops new reasonable suspicion of a separate offense. What happens instead determines the fate of the case. Hold on a moment. I'm going to have a K9 unit come by. I thought you said I could leave. Just sit tight. The driver is no longer being processed for a traffic violation. The warning has been issued. Documents returned. Purpose complete. Yet the detention continues. Not seconds. Not briefly. 7 additional minutes. 7 minutes waiting for a K9 unit. 7 minutes after the legal basis for the stop has concluded. Traffic stops are constrained not only by justification, but by duration. An officer may not prolong a stop beyond its original purpose unless new, specific facts create reasonable suspicion of additional criminal activity. Curiosity is insufficient. Generalized suspicion is insufficient. Waiting for investigative tools without lawful justification is insufficient. This distinction between voluntary interaction and continued detention is one of the most litigated boundaries in roadside policing, and it often hinges on timing measured in minutes, sometimes seconds. Notice what is absent: no confrontation, no raised voices, no physical force, no explicit threat. Nothing dramatic signals that a constitutional boundary has been crossed. The interaction remains calm, professional, routine in appearance. But legally, the encounter has changed character. The driver is no longer free to leave, despite being told he was. That contradiction becomes the central issue of the case. Dogs alerted. Pop the trunk. We got it. Look at that. The search reveals a large quantity of packaged narcotics. Distribution weight. Transport configuration. Evidence consistent with trafficking. The driver is placed under arrest. From an investigative perspective, the stop appears successful. Contraband located. Chain of custody established. Arrest executed without incident. For many observers, this would appear to be the conclusion of the story. In court, however, this discovery becomes the beginning of a different inquiry. Not what was found, but how it was found. This is the moment the case changed trajectory. When the officer returned the license and issued the warning, the legal authority for the traffic stop ended. From that point forward, continued detention required one of two things: voluntary consent or new reasonable suspicion. The driver declined further questioning. No new evidence was articulated. Yet the driver was held for an additional 7 minutes to await a K-9 unit. In legal analysis, this constitutes an extension of the stop beyond its original mission. Because the detention exceeded lawful scope, the search that followed was deemed the product of an unlawful seizure. Under long-standing evidentiary doctrine, material obtained as a result of an illegal detention cannot be introduced at trial. This principle is often summarized by a metaphor. If the source is tainted, everything derived from it is tainted. The drugs, the cash, the statements, all excluded, not disputed, not minimized, excluded entirely. To the jury, legally speaking, the discovery never occurred. This outcome does not suggest corruption. It does not allege misconduct. It does not question the officer's intent. The failure is procedural. The investigation succeeded operationally, but failed constitutionally. In the justice system, evidence must be not only accurate, but lawfully obtained. Process determines admissibility. Timing determines legality. Procedure determines outcome. The contraband was real. The arrest was real. The investigation was real. But the detention was unlawful. And in court, legality determines reality. This case serves as a reminder that authority in the field is defined not only by training and experience, but by boundaries measured in minutes and governed by procedure. In traffic enforcement, the clock is not a background detail. It is a legal instrument. One moment marks the end of authority. The next moment may determine whether a case survives judicial review. At Incident Uncovered, we follow the record, not the assumption. If you want more evidence-based breakdowns of real law enforcement procedures, subscribe and enable notifications. Each episode is structured from verified documentation, official process, and investigative timelines. Because understanding how cases unfold starts with seeing what was recorded. Thank you for watching Incident Uncovered.